It's DTS 68. We have a ton of news to talk about today, including hard mode.
You're listening to Destiny the Show. Welcome, Guardians.
What's good, everybody? It's BBKDRAGOON here with my awesome co-host, Ditty. How are you doing today?
Doing all right. Surviving the Texas flash flood raining that's been going on.
Is that a result of Patricia?
I think so, yeah. It's just like, man, for the last 4 days, constant rain. And it's not raining right now, but it's supposed to in a couple hours.
Dude, shout outs to people who are in Mexico. I have family who were like right in the heart of where it was class 5 and they evacuated and all that stuff with 200 mile an hour sustained winds. That is, I can't even like imagine what that must be like.
Can we just like petition Bungie, if they ever add America to the Destiny universe, give us like a hurricane season in game? That would be awesome.
Or what about a hurricane subclass where you summon the wind like the last airbender and you literally, like your melee shoots little tornadoes at people.
Oh my goodness.
And it like Bungie throws the Guardians up in the air and they're spinning. You have to try and shoot while you're caught in this tornado.
Oh my God. Yes, please.
Ugh. I was thinking about it this week. If Bungie allowed me a 4th and 5th character slot, I would be so happy. Because you'd have all these people, you'd have somebody with like 5 warlocks who just run the raid 5 times a week, I wonder if they, I don't know. I bet Destiny 2, as I'm getting off track, and we have a ridiculous amount of news to talk about this week. I wonder in Destiny 2 if they're going to bring in new subclasses. I really hope that they keep building the roster. So like Destiny 2 has 6 subclasses in total, including the 3 we have now. That would just be... It's cool because WoW, when I look at all the different classes in WoW, something over 10, 11, 12, I can't remember the exact number right now, but it'd be nice to have that. I don't know, spitballing. So.
News.
Okay, so hard mode released this Friday. The world first happened in an hour and 17 minutes, so shout outs to Master Chief right there. People who ended up getting world first was Clan Forever Live, and they completed it, like I said, in just a little bit over an hour, which was very surprising to me how quick that happened. And then a little bit of controversy surrounding the winners. The guy who was streaming ended up saying some, I don't know, kind of salty things towards other streamers. And right after you get world first, right, everybody on Twitter is tweeting you out, and suddenly you have a gajillion people hopping into your stream, right, that you maybe normally wouldn't have. Adrenaline is rolling, and so you might be, feeling yourself. You say a little too much, and then you get a big backlash from the community. So, did I do a nice job summing that up? I don't want to fire shots here.
I would say so. Humble in victory, or whatever,
Yeah.
Just, I don't know. When the whole world's watching you, it's kind of like there's less pressure that you have to, do or say the right thing, and I don't think that was the case this time. But oh well.
Yeah, I'll read Deej's tweets here. He tweets out, "World's first is world's first, friends. We'll pay them the respect they deserve and see if we can inspire them to do likewise. The competitive spirit can get the blood up. Let's enjoy our video games and be excellent to each other. All Guardians deserve respect."
Yeah, and this just reminded me, there's this League of Legends professional player, Doublelift. He's famous for just trash talking everybody, and he might not perform the best, but he's definitely proven himself to be one of the best players in the world, so he might not always be this, cuddly teddy bear, and he trash talks a lot, It's part of competitive video games, so sometimes you just meet those players.
And some personalities form out of that. What is new in hard mode? Like, what's changed? Hey, by the way, guys, if you don't want to know what's new, if you don't want the experience spoiled, then you can just jump ahead probably 5 minutes into the show. But we're going to go through each of the fights. We're just going to say what's changed and what hasn't changed. If that's a spoiler to you and you want that totally fresh hard mode experience, no problem. We'll see you in 5 minutes. What is new just getting into the raid in terms of, like, opening the relic doors? Didn't look like anything.
In classic hard mode fashion, this is true for the whole raid. You can't revive. So if you die, your fire team can't revive you unless you have self-res, then you do it yourself. But in terms of the first encounter, which is going to be opening the portal, I think there's not really much that's changed here. Enemies are level 42 here, and I believe the relics, they despawn quicker.
Yeah.
But when we did the hard mode raid, we didn't run into relics despawning that much.
Exactly.
Just a bit of lag when relics were not being picked up, and it was, but nothing really has changed there.
The Prove Your Worth room, which is the room you do right before the War Priest, I noticed the only difference was there was a Major Knight that spawned instead of a Hallowed. No, what was the other kind of knight that used to spawn?
Oh, I don't know.
I can't remember. But there's like one extra Major Knight. It doesn't change the fight all that much.
We totally skipped the jump puzzle, by the way. And by the way, I'm super surprised that I called this last show. That little checkpoint platform is missing from the ship jump puzzle.
Yeah.
And the ships, they go a little bit quicker, so you have to be a little bit quicker on your feet. But I thought it was hilarious that I just totally called that.
It's so random. Like, whenever has a hard mode changed the geometry, like the actual geometry, or they took the platform away? That makes no sense to me that man, we need a DTS Prediction Hall of Fame where I just put together a 5-minute segment of what we called and what came to be. That should happen. So the War Priest. So we did jump puzzle. We did the Prove Your Worth room. War Priest is like the same health pool, except when he like consumes those pillars, each one of those pillars he consumes does a different thing for him. And what are those?
He gains a few new attacks, right?
Yes.
So if the middle pillar is destroyed, the War Priest will have tracking bolts from like taken hobgoblins.
Yeah.
If the right one's taken, he gains a blinding attack similar to the taken captains. And if the left pillar is taken, then the War Priest fires off taken Centurion-esque bolts. So those are homing, but those are also a little bit slower.
I don't know many fire teams that it still takes them 4 cycles to down him. The Destiny Tracker and Pineapple Boys beat him in a 2-cycle. I've seen a lot of people do a 1-cycle Touch of Malice, and since his health pool is still the same, I don't think many Guardians are going to struggle with this at all as long as they're familiar with the fight from normal. Does that, is that true?
I would say, honestly, the best scenario or the best DPS values you can get are using the hard raid or the raid weapons with Cocoon. Just empty your mag, switch weapons, empty the mag, switch weapons, empty the mag because it's reloaded, or just use Black Spindle, and War Priest is significantly easier than we would expect.
Yep. So Golgoroth, now when you stand in that pool of reclaiming light, 2 people get basically debuffed with this thing called Unstable Light. How does that work?
So there's a countdown timer for the debuff. I think it's countdowns from 10. After standing in the pool for a little bit, 2 Guardians are marked. At the end of that countdown timer, they kind of release this AoE explosion that damages around them. So if you're standing next to your fire team, it's going to wipe you.
Yep.
Or it's going to kill your teammates, and that's not going to be good because you can't revive your teammates here. So, the 2 people who get debuffed, they count down to like 3 or 2, and then they just jump out of the middle area to protect their fire team.
There are more Cursed Thrall, and Golgoroth also shoots a lot more orbs at the person who has the gaze. So having like a pulse rifle. Orbs. I remember Azure being like, "Oh, that's a lot of orbs" when I tuned in on this stream, and it is when you see it. He shoots a lot more orbs at you. So you just kind of have to have somebody who's on Cursed Thrall duty now when you're down in the pit, and there's more Taken that spawn at the second half of the fight. But overall, did this really cause stumbling for you and the team, dude? It didn't seem like this was that much harder for Golgoroth.
To be honest, when I did hard mode, I didn't even get to the War Priest, but I did watch a lot of fire teams do the Golgoroth fight, and it did prove to be challenging because of the debuff, and a lot of fire teams struggling to do the 6 bubble strat. And by the way, Destiny Tracker and the Pineapple Boys confirmed you can do a 1 bubble strategy on Golgoroth hard mode. They did it. That's how they completed it. Just 1 bubble down, fail to capture the gaze, and continue on.
It's possible. It's doable. So when you get to the daughters, the timer basically, the 1-minute timer of their hymn starts like immediately, right? After you've done your DPS cycle on the first one?
Yeah, so the hymns, they last for a minute, and there's usually, after the first hymn is done, there's usually like this 10-second period cooldown between them in normal mode. That's not the case in hard mode. It's going to immediately start from the second daughter because you got to be on your toes this time. So as soon as you DPS the daughter and that hymn flashes your screen white, be ready to go for that next
platforms.
platform.
Get your platforms. Have your runner. You can't miss, basically. If your runner misses, it's done. So, and that's all that's really different there. Oryx is the fight that's going to have people really pissed off because it's a like light level 320 fight, basically. Everything's 42. A lot of the enemies, if you're under 310 light, can one-shot you, which is really crazy. So in addition to the ogre spawning, there will be a knight that spawns near the platform of the ogres. And those are just another target that you have to DPS really quickly before you do your staggering amount of damage to Oryx. And it looked tough. This portion of the raid, I know, caused issue for a lot of folks. What did you think seeing it?
Yeah, it definitely does cause a lot of issues because the knights that spawn in around the same time as the ogres, they will actually consume the corrupted light blights. So they'll just go away and you'll lose that DPS on Oryx, and that's kind of necessary this fight. So, platformers, guardians are going to need to really focus down those knights as soon as they spawn in so that you can maintain those corrupted lights so you can deal damage to Oryx. And the fact that it's level 320 light, someone did the math on Reddit, I think, that being 15, 20 light levels down in hard mode, yeah, it's difficult, but it's not as significant as being one level down on Crota hard mode when we were only level 32, because it's like 25 or 26% damage reduction as opposed to 33. So it's not as difficult as it was, but since there are so many more mechanics involved in the Oryx fight than there was at Crota, it's going to seem a lot more difficult.
If you're under 310, it's going to be freaking hard. Like in terms of staying alive. Like those over 310, I've heard not having that big of an issue, but I've seen Acolyte Eyes like either one shot or two shot people, and those things, if you don't prioritize those targets, dude, that's going to be painful.
Yeah, my issue is when we were running the hard mode, I said, if we can just get to Oryx, that's fine. Because I'm only level 303 light. I'm still being shafted in boot drops. My boots are only 295 light. That's the only thing keeping me under 305. And so, like, if we can just get there, that's fine. I can step out. You can do Oryx by yourself. Because I know I'm not going to be able to do the DPS. But at this point, I think I could do it at 303. It's just going to be really difficult.
The thing is, if somebody dies in the Oryx fight, it's basically a wipe. Like, that's the difficulty here. Mechanically, if you have two people die, yeah, good luck, right? That's where no mistakes make that difficulty. Speaking of rewards, let's actually talk about the gear that can drop. Harrowed weapons are what are dropping, and they're the same as the normal mode raid weapons, only they can drop at a max of 320, and they have a darker visual look. Guess what? They're not elemental. So all of you who got poopy face with me when I did my Smite of Moraine review on Planet Destiny's channel, hard mode's gonna have elemental damage. No, they did not. Luke Smith actually commented on NeoGAF this last week saying that those are a thing of the past, that legendary primaries were a mistake, and we won't be seeing them moving forward with
legendary
Destiny.
Elemental primaries were a mistake.
Yes. Did I just say legendary primaries?
Yeah. Legendary primaries are a mistake.
Okay, I'll retreat into my hole now.
No, but he said the elemental primaries were an issue because they had that elemental damage, they just outclassed every other weapon.
So what does that make Zalo Supercell? I know it's an exotic, but...
Yeah, see, that's the thing. We don't know, because it's the only elemental primary in the Taken King at this point, right?
Is it? I don't want to make that... Somebody's going to yell at us.
Someone's going to yell at us, but I really think it's the only elemental primary in the game, and to be honest, there are better weapons. Even though it has that elemental damage, there are better weapons than Zalo's Supercell.
I got the Valis Scout Rifle this week.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't look that cool. It looks like a Scout. So I think a lot of people to get to light level 310, you're going to actually have to run hard mode up until Oryx. And you might just have to be doing farming runs to get gear, to get that higher light level gear. Without just, because if you're just going to grind normal mode over and over, it's going to take forever to get to 310. But if you can just go do War Priest and Golgoroth, to work on getting gear to get you above 310 for that Oryx fight, that's what I'm going to have to do, man. My max light is like 305.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's one of the reasons I wanted to run the hard mode raid as 303, because I knew I had the potential to get gear that would boost my light level up as I continued on, and I would be closer to that max 320 for the Oryx fight once we got there, because I'm so glad we can use motes of light to upgrade our gear right now, because as soon as you get that drop in the hard raid, you can just equip it and then just use motes of light, and then you have all the perks already. That's amazing. I love that.
I've spent like 400 motes since the game came out. I came into it with like 600. I'm down to my last 100. I'm like a drug addict. I need more motes. Where's the motes? Give me the motes. So let's hop into the cool thing that, esport news. Activision and Blizzard are now using like the former CEO of ESPN and the NFL Network, Steve Bornstein, and former MLG co-founder and president, Mike Sepso. They are coming together to create a new division for Activision Blizzard completely focused on esports, correct?
Yes.
That's insane. And these guys, I'm going to quote from the article here. Where is it? Last year, Activision Blizzard created entertainment that was viewed and played by over 150 million people. This is Steve Bornstein talking here, the former CEO of ESPN, which is crazy. He says, I believe esports will rival the biggest traditional sports leagues in terms of future opportunities, and between advertising, ticket sales, licensing, sponsorships, and merchandising, there are tremendous growth areas for this nascent industry. Nascent? Nascent? Ditty?
Sure.
Okay, great. I'm excited to help Activision Blizzard further its leadership position in esports. And the little press release also noted that Destiny has been cited as the most watched console game on Twitch. So the big games that fall under this whole umbrella, you guys, are Call of Duty, Hearthstone, StarCraft, Heroes of the Storm, and of course Destiny and a few others. So what does this mean, Ditty?
I actually made a video commentary about this on my YouTube channel. And it's the first commentary I had scripted in a while. But I actually talked about Destiny esports, and I posed the question, is it even possible? Because there are so many factors in Destiny, and this is all in the commentary, factor in, or let's look at the most successful esports shooters: Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, and Halo. Those are the top three, I think. They all do multiplayer for esports. Okay, so let's look at Destiny multiplayer. Crucible. We have supers, Spartan, Guardian abilities, all this other stuff that makes the game slightly imbalanced. And, the most competitive game modes in Destiny Crucible are Iron Banner and Trials of Osiris. And they both have some matchmaking
issues,
flaws,
yeah.
That
imbalances. I think everybody openly would admit it's not perfectly balanced.
Yeah, I don't think you can just take an Iron Banner game and slap commentators on it and it would be an esport. I really don't think so, because light level factors in, and light level is determined on the gear that you get, and the gear that you get is determined by RNG. So if I'm like the best player in the world, which I'm not, obviously, but hypothetically, if I was the best player in the world, but I didn't have the best gear, and throw me into Iron Banner, I can't do anything, because the other people who have gotten the better drops are most likely going to win. Obviously my game skill is going to be a factor, but if I don't have the gear, no chance. So there's definitely issues when you initially think about Destiny esports, but I think there would have to be a lot of conversations about how to make Destiny balanced. And if you strip it down to make everyone on an even playing field, that just ruins all of Destiny's customization and character identity that players have come to know and love, because you play as a warlock, you identify yourself as a warlock player, but if I strip all that down to give you jump, grenade, and melee, are you really still a warlock?
Yeah, you raise a perfect question. If you limit the sandbox and strip away a lot of the personal choice, Destiny Crucible loses a factor that's unique to it as a shooter game.
Mm-hmm,
so
exactly,
it's not happening before Destiny 2. There is no spec mode. There is no private matches coming before Destiny 2. I'm just throwing that out there right now. I don't think we're going to see anything competitive regarding Destiny supported in a really official manner until Destiny 2. It's a bummer, but at this point, it's not happening. They've said for over a year, yeah, we know you like private matches. Yeah. We'll work on it sometime.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like, Lurker Zero,
later.
Friend of the show, mentioned this on Twitter. He's like, or he mentioned it on my YouTube video. He's like, just competitive esports Destiny would not happen unless we have, I don't know what he said exactly, but it was the idea of give the community custom games and Forge, or one or the other. And then I said, let the community figure it out, because the Destiny community, if you could, man, the custom games and Forge options in games these days are amazing for game developers, because instead of having 100 game developers, figure a game mode out, you have millions of people to figure it out. And then you just look at the most popular options and then adapt it,
I would love it. I played, Halo 2 custom games with Sassy and Epos this week. We're getting ready for Halo 5 this Tuesday. It's just so fun with your friends to be able to load up on Sanctuary, BR starts, Magnum secondaries, and just play first to 25. I would love to be able to do that in Destiny, or just imagine if there was an infection game mode, if there were a lot of game modes that were created by the community. We're derailing. We've got so much more to talk about. Shadow Shot glitch was kind of fixed. They basically just disabled Quiver, right?
Yeah, that's it.
So when's a real fix going to happen? Because isn't Quiver something you guys want to have?
In PvP, I would think that most Night Stalkers would run Quiver. I personally don't, because I almost never hit the Quiver shots. So I actually use Black Hole. I think I mentioned this on the podcast before. Just having that AoE denial for that suppression is so useful, in my opinion. But in PvP, having 3 shadow shots is definitely nice, because even if you miss it, there is that little smaller radius of suppression that can happen. But I think Bungie just wants to get trials out, and they just put the Band-Aid on Quiver, and they said, we're going to figure it out later. And honestly, there are better Hunter subclass options for trials, like Gunslinger and Blade Dancer. Those are obviously going to be better with Blink and Golden Gun. So I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. The Nightfall rewards have been buffed, something we've been complaining about for a while. The base level of Nightfall legendary rewards has been increased by 10 attack or defense, depending on what item you're picking up. It's increased the chance of a legendary drop by 10%, so it's now 60% chance of a legendary reward from doing the Nightfall. Increased the number of strange coins or 3 of coins rewards. Ghosts have been added to the legendary reward loot table. Those have been pretty rare up until now for dropping. Yep. And bosses can continue to drop their unique legendary items if it's a certain strike. And you can no longer get antiquated runes from the loot tables. Is that enough, Ditty? Our Nightfall's back?
Yeah, I think Nightfalls are back, because I ran it again and it was Dusk Palace, and I ran it a few times. I got the 2 flare cloaks that I wanted, and when it is a Nightfall, it does seem to affect the strike specific loot drops a little bit more, because even if you run the Nightfall, you get the Nightfall loot, right?
Yeah,
you can keep running that strike, because those strike specific rewards drop from the bosses themselves and not from the end game reward screen.
Oh, cool. Now, for the weekly update. I am sorry to the Iron Banner people who said gear wasn't dropping the way that it was supposed to. Guess what? It wasn't. I'll quote Lars Bakken here, the design lead. We uncovered a nasty bug that affected how legendary drops happen throughout Crucible, including Iron Banner. And they're working hard so that the next one will work as intended. So you all were right. No, yeah, there weren't enough rewards dropping. In my 55 games, I said I saw maybe 7 to 10 drops. So I obviously was in the luckiest lobbies ever, because apparently some of you didn't see anything happening. And you were right. So I'm sorry. Ditty, when is Trials coming back?
October 30th.
Oh, yeah. I also want to note that this weekend I was streaming a little bit on my Titan, and I got him up to light level 287. I wonder why I would do that right before Trials of Osiris with the Titan. This is going to be a fun Friday.
I'm going to laugh if they hotfix Sunbreakers for that damage reduction right before
there will be a
Trials
reaction
drops.
GIF posted if that's the case from me. Jaw drop.
Salvaged relic data is now decrypted. Not of consequence.
Evening, Guardian. Earn your honor, Guardian.
Titan survey data requested by...
The messy true story of behind the making of Destiny. That was a horribly written... Is that what it really actually is? Is that the title?
The
behind
messy
the making of
true
Destiny.
Story behind
there we
the
go.
making of Destiny.
I added an of in our show notes. That's why that became awful. So this is an article on Kotaku. Let's frame this whole thing. There is no sources quoted here other than sources. In true gaming journalism fashion, the sources are unnamed and want to stay unnamed, so you have to take this entire article with a grain of salt. You try and turn in an essay to your college professor, and your works cited page just says in quotation, sources. You tell me how that works out for you, okay? What?
Somebody do that and then tweet us the results, please.
No, we are not going to get in trouble for you for that. We are not held responsible. DTS is not held responsible.
Hey, final season is coming up. Get those papers done, Guardian.
Sources. That would be a good troll. Anyway, so this is a long article. It details the production cycle of Destiny throughout, its early inception to release, and confirms, now I'm air quoting, confirms, because these are just sources, we don't know if any of this is true or not, that in 2013, the Destiny story was basically retooled, completely overhauled, and that there's a lot of cut stuff that didn't make it into Destiny. It's been a time crunch. It's been difficult for them to actually get stuff out the door in the time manner that they needed to. So let's just start at the top. In 2013, they were shown a story supercut. Jason Jones and the top brass at Bungie were shown a supercut. Ditty, what is a supercut? You actually made one of the Ghost.
Supercut is just basically a large overview of what they want to happen. So they just, the major plot points in the Destiny story, they just presented it to top brass.
Yeah. So Joseph Staten, huge personality in the Bungie world, he was leading the Destiny writing team. They showed a 2-hour video that basically showed the game's cinematics and major story elements, and this is in July 2013, and they showed it off to the studio leadership. They didn't like it. Jason Jones did not think it was up to snuff. Apparently, things that they were complaining about, the story was too linear and it was too campy. And so they made the decision to completely retool the story in 2013. Now, they thought the game was coming out in March or May of 2014. So less than a year before Destiny's actual release, they said, no, this story won't do. They would devise a totally new plot over the next couple of weeks, overhaul Destiny, and try to just re-stitch together a version that would ultimately ship in September 2014. Which to me, that just sounds crazy, but we had heard rumors of this for the last year, had we not, Ditty?
Yeah, and if you think about it in terms of a game development cycle, they had been working on Destiny for years before this, and that's what they presented, years of work. And then less than a year before, they scrapped the story, right?
Yeah.
Think about what also goes on to storytelling. Game animations, game worlds.
Yeah.
Voice actor lines, all of that other stuff, music, sound effects, all that stuff is also cut when you cut story plot points, and oh my goodness, it makes a lot of sense in retrospect. Playing Destiny, it seems like there's a lot of stuff missing. That's probably because what they presented in vanilla Destiny was what was kept, because they had the game animations, the game worlds, the voice acting, the music, all that stuff already done. But now that we've seen House of Wolves Taken King really improve upon the story, it almost seems like this is the stuff that they've been working on the past year or two, ever since they made that big cut.
Totally. So right after the cut, and I'm going to do a long quote here because I thought this was pretty interesting. Over the next few months, Jason Jones, did 2 pivotal things, sources said. He designed the interface we know as the Director, a sleek set of maps in which missions are presented as nodes within each planet. He also organized a series of extensive meetings called Iron Bar, where he and other top creators at Bungie, like art director Chris Barrett and design lead Luke Smith, would figure out how to cobble together a new, less linear plot for the game. This small group of developers spent the next 2 weeks sketching out a new plot and figuring out how to fit in the story missions they'd created over the past few years. In the weeks after the reboot, the Iron Bar group, along with a team of designers and producers called Blacksmith, because they'd hammer and polish the Iron Bar, came up with a new plan for Destiny. They rescoped the game, cutting out the Dreadnought and moving it to the expansion, which was then called Comet. They changed the order in which players would progress between each planet, and they cut apart each story mission, splicing together encounters from a variety of old pieces to form the Chimera that was Destiny's new campaign. Casualties of this process included characters like Osiris and Charlemagne, an artificial intelligence on Mars who was promoted in early Destiny previews but never actually appeared in the game. Other characters like the Crow and Osiris's assistant were rewritten and recycled, becoming respectively Prince Uldren and the Stranger. Many of the story missions that actually shipped with Destiny were stitched together from older ones, sources said. Joe Staten left the company during the Midsummer reboot, although Bungie didn't announce his departure until September 2013. Two sources say the parting was not amicable, and when I reached out to him, Staten declined to comment for this article. So end quote right there. Tons of info dump there. Let's talk real quick. If you actually go back and watch the 2013 E3 demo, which I did right before we recorded this, at the very end of it, there are a ton of cutscenes that are not in the game that we have played. And the Crow is actually, talking with your Guardian, pointing a gun at him, saying, "This is how we communicate out here in the wild." Which was crazy to see because the Crow had a different voice actor, and the idea that was cut was the Crow and you team up to go find Osiris, hence why the lighthouse is empty. That was a story space that was going to be used. If any of you have been to the lighthouse, it's really creepy. You're like, what is this? This place can't just be here to award victors of Osiris, who went through Trials of Osiris, right?
Right.
So it's just an interesting look at all these characters and things that could have been, but didn't happen. So thoughts right there, Ditty, before we do our next giant quote dump and wrap this up.
I think the next year of Destiny is going to prove to be very story rich because, I really hope that cutscene from the Taken King with the Queen's brother, I really hope we see him again because that would just be absolutely amazing. And also we have the Trials of Osiris, we have the Stranger. I really expect to see an Osiris storyline coming in the next year or so. People are going to say, well, yeah, they wanted Destiny's story to be less linear, and look at what we got. It's a linear campaign, right? Well, there are a lot of storylines going on in Destiny, there is a main one where our Guardian, is going through specifically, but there's a ton of different storylines, right? We have the Hive, we have Rasputin, we have the Stranger, we have the Vex, all those different storylines, not so linear, but also kind of linear. I don't know. I think multiple story arcs, converging into one is a really cool idea.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there. I'll continue here with another giant quote, and then we'll close this thing out. In December 2014, Diablo 3 director Joss Mosquera and a few other members of his team at Blizzard came to Bungie for a talk, according to two people who were there. The parallels were uncanny. Diablo 3 had launched to commercial success in 2012, but saw a great deal of criticism from fans thanks to the randomized loot, the frustrating DRM, and a lack of endgame content. Both games shared a publisher, Activision, that thought Destiny could redeem itself in the fans' eyes the way Diablo 3 eventually had after its release, end quote. That's crazy. So if you guys didn't play, Diablo 3 launched, just like the criticism said, bad endgame RNG, it wasn't up to the caliber that people had wanted. Then, like a year later, Reaper of Souls comes out, the expansion to Diablo 3. Transform the game. I've been playing Reaper of Souls here lately. It is unrecognizable. Basically, they have made... It is the Taken King, for Diablo. The parallels are really uncanny. I'll continue here with another quote. Before anyone could be redeemed, Bungie had to ship the Taken King, which had been going through its own set of development issues. Pre-production on this expansion, which was codenamed Comet, had started in late 2013. Two sources say the original plan was to release this major expansion at $60 and include a brand new planet, Europa, as well as a new area on Earth called the European Dead Zone. They also hope to add a totally new feature called Multiple Fireteam Activities, which is a source described like this. Imagine like you and I are in a fire team and we're fighting down this one path that converges with two other paths, and you get 3 fire teams all fighting together against a boss or against some sort of mobs. Let's say a designer... Oh, I'm going to actually end quote right there. That feature... That's sort of teased in the public event section of the E3 2013 demo. Do you remember that, Ditty? At the very end, when the Devil Walker shows up, 5 or 6 other Guardians just come out of the woodwork for that public event.
Absolutely. Our fire team's going through the wall, and then we get into the divide, which is now known as, and then this other fire team comes from the rocket yards. This other fire team comes from the wall in front of us, which is not a playable space now in Destiny, and it's just everyone comes together for this boss fight. I want a lot of that. That is,
my gosh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that kind of falls into our line of that idea we had at Show 33 of the wild, right?
Yeah. Totally.
Yes, absolutely. We want more social experiences like that. Court of Oryx is fun, but those are player instigated, and it doesn't really do a good job of matchmaking 9 people together because everybody has to run towards it, right? And then you actually have to start it yourself. Nah, that's not cool. I think it would be amazing if they entered something like this. 3 fire teams happen to go down these 3 paths at the same time, and then a boss fight is triggered. That's what triggers it. Not, I get to wait 15 minutes for the next public event. That's boring. I want 3 Guardians in 3 different instances entering the same area. The game recognizes that, puts all 3 fire teams together, and it starts a boss fight immediately.
Totally.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
And that's a feature that just didn't make its way off the cutting board. Now, to close it out here, the development tools for Destiny apparently have a lot of complications. So I'm going to quote here again. Let's say a designer wants to go in and move a resource node 2 inches. They go into the editor. First, they have to load their map overnight. It takes 8 hours to input their map overnight. They get into the office in the morning. If their importer didn't fail, they open the map. It takes about 20 minutes to open. They go in and then move that node 2 feet. Then they do a 15 to 20 minute compile just to do a half-second change. People who have worked with Destiny's tech say the company is capable of powering incredible things behind the scenes like player matchmaking. It's also clear that Destiny is one of the best-looking video games ever made, but as a tool set for designers, sources say Destiny's engine is subpar, and creating new maps and missions at Bungie can be a grueling process for developers. End quote. 8 hours to load up a map just to move Relic Iron 2 feet. That might explain a whole lot.
It's not worth it.
No.
Working in the IT industry, if something is that slow, you have to take a step back and say, hey, is it worth it to wait? Or do we need to spend the money to upgrade our technology? And at this point, it's like, I really, really don't like crapping on last generation consoles, but is this technology in use because this is what needs to happen? Or what am I trying to say?
No, is this a requirement? Like,
is this a requirement for last generation console content creation?
I don't know.
Because there are some, for example, to put it in retrospect or into an example, say I have this server database that I need to access. Sometimes I need Internet Explorer version 4. That's ancient at this point.
Yeah.
Because we have Internet Explorer, 10, 9, 10, whatever.
11,
now. But
12, 15.
I can only access that stuff if I have Internet Explorer 4.
Yep.
Is it worth it at that point? Or do we need to take a step back and say, hey, let's do this upgrade, and then we're going to have to push last generation console down, but that's going to be the price to pay for Destiny's, growth.
Well, and here's the really crazy paradigm. They have to deliver yearly expansions. The Activision contract that leaked because of the lawsuit, they have to release yearly expansions. They don't have flexibility of changing those things. So they don't even have the time, potentially, to say, guys, we have to invest a lot of money changing our engine, this engine which was built for Destiny, by the way. They might not even have the time to do so before the next expansion. So
exactly.
It's got to be insanely hard to be working at Bungie, and I have nothing... never mind. I mean, it's just got to be hard. I hope...
If you make the decision to do the technology upgrade, when do you do it? You have to make a game you have to make game content every single year, right? And transferring, upgrading your technology, that takes time because you have to, you can't just install the new program and then just move everything over. That's not just the case. You have to make sure that everybody using the new program understands it, and they can find the things they need to do just like they could in the old program. And that takes time, time to adjust to the new technology. And sometimes all of Destiny's files, are they going to be compatible with this new technology? That's what you have to find out. And it's a huge undertaking.
Over the next year, we're probably going to see through drip feed content, the European Dead Zone, the new planet Europa, the Mars raid that was supposed to be within the game. I think we're going to see all of these things being re-added back in through drip feed content, their live content team. And I've kind of complained and been worried about drip feed content over the next year. Basically, the idea, guys, is there's not going to be a DLC 3 or DLC 4 prior to Destiny 2. We're just going to get this little bits and pieces of story added to the game every few weeks like we've kind of been having, and light levels increasing just little bits. If that is somehow aiding them create Destiny 2 to be a better game, if they don't have to focus and put resources towards a DLC 3 or DLC 4, and they can just put that energy into making Destiny 2 better than it can be, I am so for that, you know?
Yeah, and here's the thing. I just talked about new technology implementation, and you just reminded me. All this content that we're potentially going to see in this next year was supposedly cut from the original game. So it's been in development for a while. If it's almost ready, this next year would be the perfect time for Bungie to upgrade their technology, because they just released this drip feed content that was supposedly cut, that's been in production for years. That's when they upgrade the technology and get that time. It's not time wasted because you already have stuff developed, you know, or almost finished, right?
Yeah, it's the live content team can devote themselves to it. They don't have to pull additional resources.
Exactly,
off
and you
of
can
other
upgrade
things.
all of the designers, map creators, artists, all that other stuff. You can upgrade all their technology while the live content team, you know, progressively adds this new content to the game. I think this would be an ideal time for that.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to talk more about this, but we're already at 40 minutes. Really interesting article. Please go take a look at it. We just paraphrased a lot. There's so much more content within here. And do remember, sources. Nobody officially was named actually giving a quote. Staten didn't comment on it. Bungie didn't comment on it. But this is along the same veins as all the rumors we've been hearing this last year. And it does kind of make sense if you go back and look at that. Go watch the end of the 2013 E3 gameplay demo. You'll see a lot of stuff that was cut there. All I know is I love the Taken King, man. Each week I'm coming back to it going, they really stepped their game up with year 2. This is not the game we were playing last year. Where can people find your content?
YouTube.com/wooshness, WOOOSHNESS, and Twitter.com/Ditty, DTS, DITTY, DTS.
Excellent. Remember to hang out with our friends over at DestinyTracker.com, the best stat tracking site in all the Destiny universe. You can find us at DestinyTheShow.com, on Twitter at DestinyTheShow, and on Twitch at DestinyTheShow. You can follow me at BBKDRAGOON on both Twitter and YouTube. Hope you all have a wonderful week. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Good luck in hard mode. Eyes up, Guardians.